Hello, World Civ classes. Welcome to week 4. I keep trying not to cough, but man, the air is a disaster here, and the fires are still going, and it's still just a mess. I know folks that's lost their homes. I already did a video on all this topic, so we'll just try to move on for now and focus on the material for this week. And I just wanted to make a few statements regarding the material that we're about to cover, because ancient Israel is one of the most interesting topics, especially for those interested in, let's say, the background of Western civilization. And actually, some of you that are taking my Western Civ class, we covered a lot of this. So Western Civ will also cover this. Actually, several of our subject matters would be the foundation of Western civilization. But it's also a historical foundation that builds into the creation of Christianity and Islam. Actually, it's the foundation that creates the religion of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And what you'll find out later is that I break up this topic into two separate sections. We will go over Judaism later, but right now we're covering ancient Israel. And I will go into a deeper explanation about that once we get up to the Judaism part. But just to briefly say, and some of the points I'm going to make might be in some of the lectures. I just really want to make these extra clear. The temple gets destroyed. Ancient Israel is rooted in the geography of the area and the historical realities that were taking place in the ancient world there. They had animal sacrifices. Jewish religious people, Jews who practice their religion religiously, do not sacrifice animals anymore, because that was associated strictly with the priests and the temple, which is no longer a part of Jewish life. So Jews ended up developing a very different way of worshiping and living. They tell the stories of this time period. They incorporate them into their religious life and conceptualizations, but it's two separate things, really, in many ways. And so I just want to make that clear. Also, which this section will be almost more uncomfortable for some religious Christians, and occasionally I get Orthodox Jewish students, that it's more difficult for them than doing the evolution portion, in terms of kind of grinding up against their faith. For Orthodox Judaism and evangelical Christianity in particular, but many variants of Christianity, look at the Bible and the stories that are in there talking about ancient Israel as literal history. It's divine history. That history must be 100% true for the religion to be 100% true. So when historians start to question the actual historical historicity of the events mentioned, it really strikes a nerve, and I totally get that. I was surprised later on in my life to learn that many Catholic priests, Greek Orthodox priests, and even some Protestant ministers did not view the history. They view the Bible as divinely inspired, but they don't feel that the history has to be literally true, that there is divine truths within the stories that are told. And in fact, many of the first scholars to really start questioning aspects of the history of the Bible came out of the Christian world, not people trying to debunk the Bible, so to speak. And then, so I'm not promoting, I'm not saying that this is the way you need to approach it if you're a person of faith. I'm merely pointing out, that I wanted to just mention, is that I have us go over secular historical opinions about Israel. Now, the word secular, you all should be very well aware of by now. Secular is non-religious institutions. So when I say historians, I'm saying people who are simply looking to find the truth of archaeology and history, and they're not trying to make a theological truth, okay, necessarily. Although many of them do have theological beliefs. Now, I'm having you watch this long lecture, maybe not the most exciting, not always so easy to follow, by an Israeli archaeologist. And he really covers this topic, he said of various views about ancient Israel and the stories in the Bible very thoroughly. Now, I'm not expecting most of you to follow a lot of what he's talking about. What I would like you to do, though, is pay attention to the fact that he's talking about different archaeologists and scholars debating about the stories of the Bible and how they would add up to actual history. And so here's to keep this in mind. This shocks a lot of people. Israel, the population of Israel, I'm talking about Jewish Israelis, is a very secular society. It's a very secular society. Zionism, the concept that was used to create Israel, and that's a whole nother complicated topic to go into the details about the Israel-Palestine conflict, which I cover in my History 107 class, but not really in this one, was not based on originally on the religious beliefs, but the idea that the Bible gave a historical justification for Jews to be in that part of the world. And so the Israeli archaeological institutions will often be politicized in trying to look at archaeology, how it applies to Jewish people, which then is a way of kind of solidifying their nationalist narrative that they have a right to be there, and that being opposed to the way that the Palestinians are feeling that's been there for centuries, and it's more of a nationalist fight, and the critique of sometimes the Israeli archaeology that comes out is that it has a nationalist agenda, not a religious one. So that's just, I'm introducing you just to a whole nother complex set of issues that goes on there. So for Israelis, it's not for many Israelis, it's not whether or not the Bible is true that they're focusing on, but what it has to say about Jews being in Israel. Okay, keep in mind that modern Israel has only been around since 1948. Okay. So again, I cover that in my 107 class. But the modern conflict certainly is shaping the way that ancient history is sometimes perceived. And so I just kind of want to make you all aware of that. I am trying to expose you to the way that we deal with this very interesting topic. I always want to encourage folks, if you haven't had a chance to read the Bible, no matter what you think about it, no matter where your faith is at, it is an interesting text, and it does tell very powerful stories. And and if you grew up reading them, you will still find this very interesting, this whole section. It just may not jive with your traditional understanding. And for those of you who have no background in this, I'm hoping that you're learning from my discussion here of how religion and history play out in the modern world and how they affect the way that different people feel based on various presuppositions about life, right? So history is a very sensitive topic, no matter where you go in the world. And it's not just over religion. Nationalism probably creates the most tension in the way that historians actually discuss topics. You can get a Scottish historian in with an English historian, and there could be a fight. If or I mean, no matter where you go in the world, you will see that people have these debates about that contradict various groups, and that history is very valuable to asserting a particular type of political supremacy or agenda or so on. Okay, so no way around that, and we're not going to resolve that here, but at least you are becoming aware of the trials and the obstacles within my field that we must work with. So have a blessed day, and please contact me if you have any questions on this section. I happen to really enjoy it, and it might be something that some of you really want to ask more questions on. I will do my best to be available for you. So stay safe, take care of yourself, and we'll be in touch.